Let me introduce myself. My name is Lila Carter, and this is a story about choices. Choices that define who we are, choices that change the course of our lives, and choices that sometimes feel like they're made for us. I'm not here to tell you some grand tale of heroism or magic. No, my story is far more grounded than that. It's corporate, it's messy, and at times it's ugly. But if there's one thing I've learned through all of it, it's this. Revenge doesn't always look how you expect it to. It started on a Tuesday morning in late September, the kind where the air feels crisp but heavy with unspoken tension. You know those mornings when everything seems normal until suddenly it isn't? That was me, sitting in an office chair I had worn down over 5 years of loyalty, staring at spreadsheets filled with numbers that meant next to nothing to anyone outside the boardroom. The fluorescent lights buzzed above me, casting harsh shadows across my desk, and somewhere deep inside, I could feel the weight of something coming. Call it intuition, call it paranoia. I don't know what it was, but it was there. I worked at Sterling and Company, a mid-sized marketing firm known for its flashy campaigns and even flashier executives. From the outside, it looked like your typical success story. A company growing faster than anyone anticipated, clients lining up at the door, awards stacking up on shelves. Inside, though, things were different. Behind closed doors, cracks were forming. And they weren't just structural, they were personal. People talked behind each other's backs. Promotions were handed out based on favoritism rather than merit, and morale? Well, let's just say morale wasn't exactly thriving. My role as senior account manager kept me busy enough to avoid dwelling too much on the toxicity around me. I'd been with the company since graduating college, climbing slowly but surely up the ladder. Back then, I believed in the dream, the idea that hard work would be rewarded, that dedication mattered, that people noticed when you stayed late night after night perfecting pitches. And maybe they did notice, but not always in the way I hoped. The day everything changed began innocently enough. I arrived early, coffee in hand, ready to tackle another round of client meetings and strategy sessions. As usual, I nodded politely to colleagues passing by, exchanged small talk about the weather, always awkward, and settled into my routine. By 9:30 a.m., I was already knee-deep in emails, responding to urgent requests from team members and double-checking deadlines. Everything seemed fine, that is, until the summons came. At first, I thought it was just another meeting request. Nothing unusual about that. But when HR walked into my office instead of sending an email, their faces tight with unease, I knew something was off. "Lila," said Karen from HR, her voice clipped and formal. "Mr. Sterling wants to see you in his office immediately." Immediately. That word has a way of making your stomach drop, doesn't it? Immediately never means good news. Still, I grabbed my notebook and followed her down the hallway, past rows of cubicles buzzing with quiet murmurs. When we reached Mr. Sterling's corner office, the door was already open, revealing him seated behind his massive mahogany desk. He gestured for me to sit without looking up, tapping impatiently at his keyboard. Something about his demeanor set me on edge. It wasn't anger, exactly, but something colder, sharper. "Lila," he finally said, leaning back in his chair and folding his hands together. His tone was calm, almost pleasant, which only made my nerves spike further. "We need to have a conversation about your future here at Sterling and Company." Here we go, I thought. This is it. Layoff time. Or worse, demotion time. I braced myself, trying to keep my expression neutral. "Of course," I replied, forcing a smile. "What do you need to discuss?" He didn't waste any time getting to the point. "As you may or may not know, the company is facing some financial challenges right now. We've had to make some tough decisions regarding expenses, and, unfortunately, payroll is one area we can't ignore." He paused, letting the words sink in before continuing. "Effective immediately, all senior staff will be required to take a 25% pay cut. No exceptions." A pay cut? My mind reeled. 25% wasn't just a slap in the face, it was a punch to the gut. After years of pouring my heart and soul into this company, sacrificing weekends, missing family events, working myself to exhaustion, this was how they repaid me? With a demand to accept less while expecting more? And if I refuse? I asked, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. Sterling's smile faltered slightly, but only for a moment. Then he leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "If you refuse, Lila, then I'm afraid we'll have no choice but to part ways. Take the pay cut or get out." Just like that, The ultimatum hung in the air between us, thick and suffocating. Get out. 3 little words that felt like a dismissal, a betrayal, a slap in the face. I stared at him, searching for some sign of empathy, some acknowledgement of the years I'd given to this place. But there was nothing, just cold calculation staring back at me. For a brief second, I considered saying yes, accepting the pay cut, swallowing my pride, and staying put. After all, what were my options? Starting over somewhere else at my age, with bills piling up and responsibilities mounting, wasn't exactly appealing. But then I remembered something important. I wasn't the same person I'd been when I first walked through these doors. I'd grown, evolved, become stronger. And I realized in that split second that walking away might hurt, but staying would destroy me. So I stood up, straightened my shoulders, and looked him dead in the eye. "Then I guess I'll be leaving," I said, my voice clear and unwavering. Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked out of his office, head held high. Every step toward the exit felt lighter than the last, as though I were shedding layers of resentment and frustration I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. By the time I reached the elevator, my hands were trembling, not from fear, but from adrenaline. For the first time in years, I felt alive. But here's the thing about leaving something behind. It leaves space for something new to grow. And trust me, what grew in that space was something Mr. Sterling couldn't have imagined in his wildest dreams. Over the next few days, I allowed myself to grieve. Losing a job isn't just losing income. It's losing identity, stability, purpose. I spent hours scrolling through LinkedIn, refreshing my resume, and wondering if I'd made a colossal mistake. Doubt crept in during the quiet moments, whispering cruel reminders of how risky it was to walk away without a safety net. But beneath the doubt, something else simmered: determination. If Sterling and company didn't value me, someone else would. And if no one else did either, well, maybe it was time to create my own value. That's when the idea struck me. Not fully formed, not polished, but raw and electric. An ember waiting to catch fire. Over the years, I'd built relationships with dozens of clients, understood their needs better than anyone else at the company, and earned their trust. What if I didn't need Sterling and company anymore? What if I could take those relationships, that expertise, and build something entirely my own? The concept was terrifying and exhilarating. Starting a business from scratch wasn't going to be easy, especially without the resources or backing of a major corporation. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt inevitable. This was my chance to prove not just to Sterling, but to myself, that I was capable of more than being someone else's employee. I could be a leader, a creator, a force to be reckoned with. I started small, reaching out to former clients under the guise of checking in. Conversations flowed naturally, and before long I found myself pitching ideas I'd been bottling up for years. Ideas Sterling had dismissed as impractical or too ambitious. To my surprise, many of them loved the direction I wanted to take. One client even offered to fund part of my venture if I promised to prioritize their account. Another agreed to serve as a reference, opening doors I hadn't dared to knock on yet. Word spread quickly, and within weeks I had a roster of potential clients eager to work with me. All I needed now was structure, a plan, a team, a brand. That's when the real work began. Days blurred into nights as I poured every ounce of energy into building my company. I rented a modest co-working space, hired freelancers whose skills complemented mine, and designed a logo that screamed innovation. I named it Carter Collective, a nod to my roots and a promise to collaborate authentically with every client. But starting a business isn't just about logistics, it's about resilience. There were setbacks, of course. Clients who backed out last minute. Invoices that went unpaid, sleepless nights spent questioning whether I'd bitten off more than I could chew. Yet with each challenge, I grew stronger. Each obstacle became a lesson. Each failure a stepping stone toward success. And then there was the satisfaction of watching Sterling and company stumble in my absence. Without me managing key accounts, the company struggled to maintain its momentum. Clients began complaining about lackluster service, missed deadlines, and uninspired campaigns. Morale plummeted even further, and whispers of layoffs echoed through the halls. I heard it all secondhand, from former colleagues still trapped in the toxic environment I'd escaped. They reached out occasionally, updating me on the chaos unfolding behind closed doors. Some sounded envious of my freedom. others desperate for advice on surviving the turmoil. None of them knew the full extent of what I was planning. Revenge, I discovered, isn't about destruction, it's about creation. It's about proving wrong those who doubted you, not by tearing them down, but by rising higher than they ever thought possible. And rise I did. Within 6 months, Carter Collective was turning heads in the industry. We landed major contracts, earned glowing testimonials, and attracted talent eager to join a company driven by passion rather than profit. Every milestone felt like a victory, not just for me, but for everyone who had ever felt undervalued or overlooked. Still, the journey was far from over. Success brought its own challenges: scaling responsibly, maintaining quality, ensuring my team felt valued and supported. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. And somewhere along the way, I realized that leaving Sterling and Company hadn't been the end of my story, it had been the beginning. As the months turned into a year, Carter Collective continued to grow in ways I never could have imagined. The initial spark of rebellion had transformed into a roaring fire of ambition and purpose. My team, hand-picked individuals who shared my vision of creativity, collaboration, and integrity, became more than just colleagues. They became family. Together, we pushed boundaries, challenged norms, and delivered work that didn't just meet expectations but exceeded them. One day, while reviewing campaign analytics for one of our biggest clients, I received an email from someone unexpected, Mr. Sterling himself. At first, I thought it was spam or some kind of prank. Why would he reach out to me after everything? Curiosity got the better of me, so I opened it. The message was short and surprisingly candid. "Lila, I owe you an apology. What happened between us wasn't handled well, and I've seen the success you've built since leaving. You've proven yourself to be far more capable than I gave you credit for. If there's ever an opportunity to collaborate, I'd welcome the chance to make amends." I stared at the screen for a long time, my emotions swirling like storm clouds. Part of me wanted to delete the email without responding. Another part felt a flicker of satisfaction knowing that he had acknowledged his mistake. But ultimately, I decided not to let bitterness dictate my actions anymore. Revenge wasn't about gloating over his failure. It was about proving that kindness and professionalism could coexist with strength. So I replied simply, "Thank you for reaching out, Mr. Sterling. While I appreciate your words, I'm focused on building something new now. However, if Sterling and Company ever needs innovative solutions, feel free to contact us through proper channels. We're always open to helping businesses thrive." It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was closure, a way to acknowledge the past without letting it define my future. Months later, word spread even further about Carter Collective's success. Awards started pouring in, recognizing our creative campaigns, ethical practices, and commitment to fostering a positive workplace culture. One evening, as I stood on stage accepting an industry accolade, I looked out at the audience and saw faces I recognized from my old life, former coworkers, clients, even Karen from HR. Their applause filled the room, and for the first time, I truly understood what it meant to inspire others. After the ceremony, several people approached me to congratulate me. Among them was Rachel, a junior account manager I'd mentored during my time at Sterling and Company. She hugged me tightly and whispered, "You showed us all that it's possible to leave toxicity behind and still succeed. Thank you for paving the way." Her words hit me harder than any award ever could. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about creating opportunities for others to believe in themselves too. That night, I made a promise to myself. Carter Collective wouldn't just be a business. It would be a beacon of hope for anyone who felt stuck or undervalued. Life settled into a rhythm I cherished. The days were busy, yes, but they were also fulfilling. I spent mornings brainstorming ideas with my team, afternoons meeting with clients, and evenings reflecting on how far we'd come. On weekends, I took long walks by the lake near my apartment, watching the sun dip below the horizon and feeling grateful for every step of the journey. Then came the day when everything came full circle. A major publication featured Carter Collective in a cover story titled, "How One Woman Turned Betrayal into Triumph." The article detailed my departure from Sterling and Company, the challenges I faced starting my own company, and incredible growth we achieved. It ended with a quote from me. "Success isn't about tearing others down, it's about lifting yourself up and bringing others along with you. If I can inspire even one person to take a leap of faith, then every struggle will have been worth it. When the issue hit newsstands, my phone lit up with messages from friends, family, and strangers alike. Some shared their own stories of walking away from toxic environments. Others thanked me for giving them courage to pursue their dreams. Reading those messages reminded me why I started this journey in the first place, not for fame or fortune, but to create change, both in my life and in the lives of others. And then, one sunny afternoon, I received a call from Rachel. She told me she had quit her job at Sterling and Company to join Carter Collective. "I want to be part of something bigger than myself," she said, "something meaningful, and I know I can find that here." Hearing her say those words brought tears to my eyes. In that moment, I realized that my revenge wasn't against Mr. Sterling or Sterling and Company. It was against the idea that I couldn't rise above adversity. By choosing to walk away and build something extraordinary, I had rewritten the narrative. I had turned pain into power and fear into freedom. Years later, as I sat in my office overlooking the bustling city, I reflected on how much had changed. Carter Collective had grown beyond anything I could have dreamed of, becoming a leader in the industry known for innovation and compassion. My team was thriving, my clients were happy, and I finally felt at peace with the choices I'd made. Revenge, I learned, isn't about hurting those who hurt you. It's about healing yourself and showing the world what's possible when you refuse to settle. Leaving Sterling and Company wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a happier, brighter chapter. And as I closed my laptop for the day and headed home to celebrate another milestone with my loved ones, I knew one thing for certain. I had won. Not because I destroyed someone else's empire, but because I built my own. Years later, as I stood on the rooftop of Carter Collective's new office building, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of gold and pink, I felt a deep sense of peace. My team was thriving, my clients trusted us completely, and I had built something that truly mattered. One evening, an email popped up from Mr. Sterling. *, congratulations on your success, Lila. You've earned it. *, I smiled, deleted the message, and turned back to the horizon. Revenge wasn't about him. It was about me proving that kindness, resilience, and hard work could create a life far greater than anything he'd ever imagined. With a heart full of gratitude, I walked inside to join my team for a celebratory dinner. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and that made all the difference.